It is 3 in the morning. The room is completely dark. You are lying in bed, exhausted, trying to sleep. Everything is quiet. And then, out of nowhere, your brain decides that right now, at this exact moment, is the perfect time to remind you of something embarrassing you did 7 years ago. Something you had not thought about in months. Something that did not matter then and definitely does not matter now. And yet here you are, wide awake, physically cringing into your pillow about something that happened in 2017. You are not alone. This experience is so universal that it has become one of the most shared human jokes across every culture and every age group. People all over the world lie awake at night being ambushed by the memory of something they said at a party in 2014, a presentation that went wrong, a text they sent to the wrong person, a time they waved back at someone who was not waving at them. Your brain collected all of these, and it saves them for exactly this moment. But why? Why does this happen at night specifically? Why does it happen when you are trying to sleep? And why does your brain choose the most embarrassing, most cringe-worthy moments from your entire life history to replay on a loop exactly when you are most tired and most vulnerable? The answer involves several overlapping systems in your brain, and once you understand them, you will never think about your 3 a.m. memory ambushes the same way again. Let us start with what is actually happening in your brain during the day versus what happens at night. During waking hours, your brain is constantly processing incoming information from the world around you. Every conversation, every task, every decision you make requires cognitive resources. And this constant processing of new external information acts as a kind of noise that drowns out internal signals. Think of it like a busy road. During the day, there is constant traffic, new information arriving, tasks demanding attention, problems requiring solutions. Individual thoughts have to compete with all of this incoming traffic just to get noticed. Most of them lose. Most of them get pushed aside and buried under the noise of daily life. But at night, the traffic stops. No new information is coming in. No tasks are demanding attention. No conversations are happening. The external world goes quiet. And in that quiet, the thoughts that could not get through during the day suddenly have the entire road to themselves. They do not have to compete anymore, and they rush in. This is the first reason your brain replays embarrassing memories at night. Not because night is special for embarrassing memories specifically, but because night is quiet, and embarrassing memories are particularly persistent and emotionally charged thoughts that were waiting for exactly this moment of silence to make themselves heard. Now let us talk about why embarrassing memories specifically are so persistent. Not happy memories. Not neutral memories. Not even necessarily sad memories. Embarrassing ones. Cringe ones. The kind that make your whole body tense up involuntarily just from the remembering. Why those? The answer lies in how emotional intensity affects memory storage. Your brain does not store all memories equally. It has a prioritization system, and one of the most powerful factors in that system is emotional intensity. The stronger the emotion attached to an experience, the more strongly and durably the memory of that experience is encoded. This system exists for a very good evolutionary reason. If something scared you badly, you needed to remember exactly what it looked like, where it happened, and how to avoid it in the future. If something made you feel deeply ashamed or humiliated in your social group, you needed to remember exactly what caused that reaction so you could avoid repeating it. Emotions are memory tags. Strong emotions create strong tags. Strong tags mean memories that are harder to forget. Embarrassment is a particularly powerful emotional tag for a specific reason. As social animals who survived by staying in groups, being embarrassed, being visibly judged or rejected by the group around you, was genuinely dangerous for ancient humans. Social rejection was not just emotionally painful. It was a real threat to survival. The brain learned to treat social pain as urgently as physical pain. This is why embarrassment feels so physically uncomfortable, even when the stakes are objectively tiny. Your body reacts to the memory of saying something awkward at a party the same way it reacts to a genuine threat. Your face gets hot. Your stomach tightens. Your whole body wants to escape the feeling. This is an ancient threat response being triggered by a memory of something that, in realistic terms, absolutely no one else still cares about. But your brain does not know that. Your brain tagged that memory as socially dangerous, encoded it with high emotional intensity, and filed it under things that require attention. Every time it gets triggered, the threat response fires. Every time the threat response fires at night with nothing to compete against, it wakes you up or keeps you awake while your body literally braces against a danger that exists only inside your own head. Now let us talk about something called the default mode network, because this is where things get really interesting. Your brain has a collection of interconnected regions that become particularly active when you are not focused on a specific external task. When you are daydreaming, resting, or lying in bed trying to sleep, this network lights up. Neuroscientists call it the default mode network, and it is essentially your brain's internal processing system. The default mode network is responsible for things like self-reflection, thinking about the past and future, imagining how other people perceive you, and processing social situations. It is essentially the part of your brain that thinks about you and your place in the world. And it becomes most active precisely when external demands are lowest, like when you are lying quietly in the dark trying to fall asleep. This means that the moment you get into bed and stop focusing on external tasks, your default mode network ramps up and begins doing what it does best: reviewing your social history, analyzing past interactions, evaluating how other people saw you, and flagging moments that it considers unresolved or problematic. Embarrassing memories are exactly the kind of material it gravitates toward. They are unresolved social situations. They are moments where you feel your social performance was inadequate. The default mode network treats them as open files. This connects to something called the Zeigarnik Effect, which is the brain's documented tendency to remember and return to unfinished or unresolved tasks far more persistently than completed ones. An embarrassing memory feels unresolved because the social situation it came from never had a satisfying conclusion. You cannot go back and fix what you said. You cannot change how the moment played out. It is permanently unfinished. And your brain keeps returning to it precisely because it cannot close the file. The brain keeps replaying these memories partly in an attempt to process them. It is running them through its social analysis systems, trying to extract lessons, trying to understand what went wrong, trying to figure out what you could have done differently. This is actually an adaptive process. The brain is attempting to learn from social failures. The problem is that at 3 in the morning, this processing is actively preventing the sleep you need, making it spectacularly counterproductive. There is also a specific mechanism called rumination that makes the problem worse. Rumination is the psychological term for repetitive, passive focus on distress, replaying the same negative thoughts and memories over and over without actively working toward a solution. Once a negative memory starts replaying, rumination can create a loop where thinking about the memory triggers the emotional response. The emotional response makes the memory more vivid, the vividness triggers more replaying, and the cycle continues without any natural off switch. Studies have found that people who naturally tend toward rumination experience more frequent and more intense intrusive memory episodes, particularly at night. And certain states make rumination significantly worse, specifically tiredness, stress, and anxiety, all three of which are extremely common at 3 in the morning when you are lying awake not sleeping. Sleep deprivation itself creates a particularly vicious cycle. The more tired you are, the less effective your prefrontal cortex, the rational, logical, calming part of your brain, becomes at regulating emotional responses. This means a tired brain is less able to tell itself that the embarrassing thing from 7 years ago genuinely does not matter. The emotional memory fires. The regulatory system is too tired to do its job properly. And you lie there cringing while your body braces against a party conversation from 2016. There is something that makes nighttime memory replays feel even more intense than the same memories encountered during the day. When you are lying still in the dark with no distractions, the memory has your complete, undivided attention. During the day, even if the memory surfaces briefly, you can redirect your attention to the screen in front of you, the conversation you are having, or the task you are working on. At night, there is nothing to redirect to. The memory fills the entire available cognitive space. This is why the same embarrassing memory that might surface and then quickly disappear during a busy day can feel absolutely all-consuming at midnight. The memory has not gotten worse. The situation has not gotten more serious. Your ability to look away from it has simply been removed. All the lights are off and the memory is the only thing with any visibility. Now here is something that might surprise you. The content of these memories, the actual specific embarrassing thing, is often far less important than the feeling the memory triggers. Research on intrusive memories shows that the emotional response is frequently disproportionate to the actual severity of the original event. Something objectively minor, a slightly awkward comment, a small social misstep, can generate an emotional response at 3 in the morning that feels genuinely overwhelming. This disproportionate response happens partly because memory is not a neutral playback system. Every time you replay a memory, your brain slightly reconstructs it. Details get shifted, the emotional intensity gets repackaged, and the version you remember is influenced by your current emotional state. If you are already feeling anxious or low when the memory surfaces, the memory will be reconstructed through that emotional lens, often making it feel worse than the original experience actually was. There is also a social component to why embarrassing memories are so specifically targeted. Humans are fundamentally social creatures whose well-being depends deeply on how they are perceived within their social groups. The feeling of being judged negatively, of having said or done something that lowered your social standing, is registered by the brain as a significant threat. And significant threats get reviewed, analyzed, and replayed far more than neutral events. Think about it this way. If you had a perfectly pleasant, unremarkable lunch 7 years ago, you have absolutely no memory of it. If you accidentally called your teacher mom in front of the whole class 7 years ago, you remember it in high-definition detail, complete with the precise sound of everyone's reaction. The lunch was objectively more important to your survival, you needed food. But the embarrassing moment got the stronger memory tag because social threat always outranks physical comfort in the brain's priority system. Now let us talk about what this feels like physically, because the body's response to embarrassing memories is genuinely fascinating and largely overlooked. When an embarrassing memory surfaces, your body does not just experience a thought. It reenacts the original physical response. Your face may flush. Your stomach may contract. Your shoulders may tense. You may literally pull your body inward, as if trying to make yourself smaller. This physical reenactment happens because the brain encodes memories with their associated physical states. When the memory is retrieved, the physical state that accompanied the original experience is partially retrieved along with it. Your body is essentially running a low-resolution version of the original embarrassed response, which is why embarrassing memories are uniquely awful. They are not just thoughts you have about the past, they are brief physical re-experiences of past discomfort. So now you understand why this happens. But what can you actually do about it? The first and probably most important thing is to simply stop fighting the memory when it arrives. Trying to suppress a thought is one of the least effective strategies the human brain has available. Studies consistently show that deliberate thought suppression actually increases the frequency and intensity of the suppressed thought, a phenomenon psychologists call the rebound effect. This is sometimes called the white bear problem, from a famous experiment where participants were told not to think about a white bear. They could not stop thinking about a white bear. The more you try to force an embarrassing memory out of your head, the more prominently it bounces back. Fighting it directly almost always makes it worse. A more effective approach is something called cognitive defusion, a technique from acceptance and commitment therapy that involves observing the memory rather than engaging with it. Instead of being pulled into the story of the memory, you notice it from a slight distance. My brain is currently replaying that moment. I can see it doing that. I do not have to respond to it right now. This creates a small but significant gap between the memory firing and your emotional reaction to it. Something called the self-distancing technique is also well supported by research. Instead of experiencing the embarrassing memory from inside it, from your own first-person perspective, reliving every detail, you try to observe it from a slight external distance, as if watching it happen to someone else from across the room. Studies show this reduces emotional intensity significantly and helps the brain process the memory more objectively rather than reactively. Writing about intrusive memories is another strategy with genuine research support. Getting the memory out of your head and onto paper, not to analyze it endlessly but simply to externalize it, reduces its internal pressure. The brain treats written records similarly to closed files. Once it has been documented somewhere external, the internal looping system sometimes quiets down because the processing obligation has been discharged. There is also evidence that reframing the self-compassion response to embarrassing memories has measurable effects on how frequently they intrude. Many people respond to embarrassing memories with internal criticism, replaying the moment while mentally attacking themselves for it. This self-critical response actually amplifies the emotional intensity and increases the frequency of the memory resurfacing. Treating yourself with the same compassion you would offer a good friend who described the same situation reduces that amplification. If a friend told you they had accidentally said something awkward at a party 7 years ago, you would not think less of them. You would tell them it was not a big deal. Your brain deserves to hear the same thing you would tell someone you care about. Here is something genuinely comforting that research consistently confirms. The embarrassing moments that haunt you at 3 in the morning are, in the vast majority of cases, remembered only by you. Other people are extraordinarily poor witnesses to our own social failures. They are too preoccupied with their own experience, their own social performance, and their own concerns to dedicate significant memory storage to something you said or did. The spotlight effect, a well-documented psychological phenomenon, describes our consistent overestimation of how much other people notice and remember our actions, mistakes, and embarrassments. You remember your awkward moment in perfect detail because it happened to you, because it generated a strong emotional response in you, and because your brain tagged it as socially significant. To everyone else in the room, it was a barely noticed moment that they forgot before they got home. So here is the reality. Your brain is not torturing you for fun at 3 in the morning. It is running an ancient social threat detection and processing system that evolved when being judged by your group carried real consequences. It is doing its job reviewing, analyzing, and attempting to learn from social experiences that it has flagged as potentially significant. The problem is simply that it does this job at 3 in the morning, with the sensitivity dial turned up too high, in a social environment where the original stakes no longer apply. Why does your brain replay embarrassing memories at 3 in the morning? Because darkness removes all the noise that was drowning them out during the day. Because embarrassment triggers ancient social threat systems that the brain treats as urgent. Because the default mode network turns on the moment you stop giving it something external to focus on. And because your brain, despite all its complexity, still runs on software written for a world where social rejection was genuinely life-threatening. You are not broken. You are not weak. You are simply a very modern person carrying a very ancient brain into a very quiet room. And the ancient brain has some things it needs to go over with you. It will only take until about 5 in the morning.